Brothers and sisters, this is the gist of what the Buddha taught most of the time. And his message is always very clear, that we should not be dwelling too much in our past, and we should not be also speculating too much in our future. And the most important moments of our life is what we are doing at this present moment. What are we doing now? So if you are depressed, then you are living in the past. And if you are anxious, then or worried, then you are living in the future. However, if you are at peace, then you are living in the present. So this is the gist of our Buddha's teachings, and especially in a lot of our practice, we focus a lot of present moments. Now, when we talk about present, now present is actually in between the past and the future. In other words, what is past is already gone, and what is future is yet to come. But what we are in control and what we are in charge of is actually what we are doing at the present moment. So the message is all the time very clear. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future, but just concentrate the mind on the present moment. And this is the teaching of the Buddha. Now, when we talk about present, past, and future, these are the three continuous moments of time. Because what is the present was yesterday's future. And what is today is yesterday's tomorrow. So today is actually yesterday's tomorrow. And today is also tomorrow's yesterday. So today can be yesterday, and today can be tomorrow. So therefore, there's actually a continuous process, and we shouldn't be caught in either one of these, in the sense that if we are dwelling too much in our past, then we do not actually move forward to the present. And if we get stuck in the present and do not do anything, then we are not preparing ourselves for the future. So what we do today basically determines what we will be tomorrow. Now, we always know that today, or at this present moment, you practically have a lot of opportunity to do something about changing the direction, changing the way of life, changing the way we think, changing the way we live. Because what matters most is how we make full use of what we have today, right? Don't worry so much about what's going to happen tomorrow, because today is the day that will determine our tomorrow. Now, there's a lot of time we have a lot of worries. And when we have worries, we tend to be paralyzed. But the question asked is, why worry? Because by worrying, right, do you solve your problem? So if you can't solve your problem by worrying, then why worry? So if you can do something about situation, then you don't need to worry. And if you can't do something about a situation, then why worry? So this is a very good advice for how we are going to deal with all the worries and anxiety. Because some of them are actually beyond our control. But the most important thing is we can actually control how we want to be today, because what we do today will then eventually mold the tomorrow. So therefore, when you want something from tomorrow, then the most important thing is we must be able to do something about it today. Now, most of you would have known this book, called The Power of Now. And this book was written by Eckhart Tolle, a German. Now, Eckhart Tolle book basically is quite in sync with what the Buddha taught. Because he is saying that actually the most powerful moments of our life is what is the present and what we are living now. So if you want to have spiritual enlightenment, this is the guide and this is the direction we should adopt. So Eckhart Tolle was a very bestseller book, and this book has actually sold millions of copies. Now, Eckhart Tolle was actually a spiritual teacher, and he was an author, which was born in Germany, but he was educated in London. Now, at the age of 29, he had a profound inner transformation. Radically, which changed his course of life. So he began to see the solution to a lot of issues which arise in our lives. And he then concluded that the only way to resolve most of these problems and difficulties is nothing else except just to focus on what is the present moment. So realize deeply that the present moment is all you have. So make the now the primary focus of your life, which means to say, we don't focus on anything else. Don't fall back on your past. Don't move forward to your future. The most important thing is, this is the moment you have now, and this is the moment you are in charge, this is the moment you are in control. Why not make full use of this present moment and do something about it? So the only thing that is ultimately real about your journey, right, is the step that you are taking at this very moment. And that's all there ever is. So these messages actually rings a lot of bells to many people, because a lot of us are living in the past. And we have a lot of regrets and unhappiness as a result of thinking about our past. And a lot of us are very worried about our future. And especially during this difficult time, we do not know when will be our next job, when will be our next opportunity, when will be our next, even to a certain extent, our next meal. So many people are facing these issues. So unhappiness is created whenever you are out of alignment with the present moment. Because the moment you are out of touch of the present moment and started to move backwards or starting to move too much forward, then that is where you create a lot of unhappiness for yourself, right? So be aligned with what you should be doing and not necessarily doing all the things that you should be avoiding. Now, a lot of time, we think about things that we can do today, but we, most of the time, procrastinate and try to delay it, try to defer it, and says it can be done another time, or probably in the future, and so on. Or we should have done it before. Actually, Nike was right. Nike has actually come up with a slogan called "Just Do It." In other words, whatever you think that you can do it. Don't procrastinate anymore, and just be able to be in charge. And once you are able to do it now, it will lead you somewhere. It will lead you to some destination. Now, before I talk about the past and the future, I'd just like to talk to you about the flow of energies. Now, we all know that energy is a continuous flux. It keeps on rising and falling, it keeps on changing. It keeps on appearing and disappearing. And that's how we have been made to realize, even in our meditation. And let's take, for example, the analogy of the power of a wave in the sea. Now, when we go to the ocean and we see the wave, and we can see the rising of a wave, but the rising of the wave did not arise on its own. It arises because there was a previous wave before. And that previous wave rises to its crest and climax. And then eventually it will come to a peak and then it will subside. And when it subsides, that's not the end of the wave. Because the momentum of the subsidence, the coming down of the wave, will create so much energy and momentum. And the inertia will then push us to make another wave arise, make another wave goes up. And then this wave will then again reach its climax. And then eventually, when it reaches climax, it will then have to come down. And when it comes down, the momentum will then push the next wave and the next wave and the next wave. And it continues until the energy of inertia and momentum ceases and stops. So we can see that the only way to stop the up and downs and the rising and the falling is to stop that momentum, is to stop that inertia. And that's what we are all talking about in life. That when we live, we are born and then eventually we will die. And for every death, the momentum that we carry forward, the karmas, the craving forces that we have in our minds is not ceased. And thus it has that momentum to push the arising of the becoming of the next life. And when the next life arises, reaches its climax, eventually it will have to deteriorate and subside. And then this momentum, if it's not ceased, will then push on the next life and the next life and the next life. And that causes what we call the cycle of birth and death. And it's called samsara. And when you have samsara, there is always dukkha. And dukkha cannot cease until you put a stop to the cause of all this arising. And that is called craving. And that you identify the cause of dukkha is actually craving. And these are the three great cravings, called craving for existence, craving for non-existence, and craving for sensual pleasures. So when we have this three great craving, it's like a momentum, it's like an inertia, which if it's not seized, it will continue to propel itself to the arising of the next phenomena. And thus you get born again and again and again, and you face dukkha again and again and again. But there is a stop. You can stop it. You can say, now I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to stop that momentum. I'm going to stop that inertia. I'm going to reduce that craving. And I'm going to one fine day, hopefully, cease from craving. Now, if I can cease from craving, then I cease from the arising. The cause would then cease. So if there's no more cause for that arising, then there is no more dukkha. So that is the cessation of dukkha. So therefore, you see the Four Noble Truths has clearly indicate that there is dukkha. And what was the cause? The cause was your craving. And how do you cease from craving? Is to reduce them, cease them slowly and slowly until one fine day that momentum totally eradicates. And when there's a cessation of craving, when there's a cessation of the rising, then that will be the end of dukkha. And that is called Nirvana. No more becoming. Nirvana, become, no more become. So therefore, when you do that, you become enlightened. And then with the enlightened mind, where you no longer crave anymore, then you attain what we call the cessation of birth and death, called Nirvana. But all this easier said than done, isn't it? That's why the Buddha gave us the fourth noble truth, which is the path or the methodology or the discipline that leads to the cessation of the cause. And then that will lead to the cessation of dukkha. So the path is very important. And what are we doing about it now? Are we following the path? Are we looking at the path? Are we trying to adapt to the path? Are we trying to adopt the path in order to live, in order to reduce the craving force, the craving momentum within us? So you have to do something about it if you want to cease from all this craving. You have to do something about it if you want to cease from being born. You have to do something about it if you want to end dukkha once and for all. So do it now. But though the discipline is there, the methodology is there, but it is not an overnight affair. You need to continuously do it over long periods of time. Try and try, practice and practice, determination, persistence, and finally one fine day you are then able to achieve the total eradication of craving or tanha. Now when we talk about past, present, and future, sometimes we dwell too much in our past. Right? When we dwell too much in our past, we often do not develop a lot of guilt. We feel guilty about what we have done. We feel very regretful. And we probably sometimes goes into depression and remorse. And because of that feeling, you do not get any sense of peace and happiness. And then you resent the way you are as a result of your past, that you have not been doing all this, you have not been successful, and thus you have to suffer all these difficulties. So when you dwell too much in the resentment and the grievances that arise in your past, you never move forward and you never enjoy moments of peace. And a lot of times we look back at our life and then we look at all the unhappy feelings, the sadness and the bitterness. So when we think about all this, those thoughts are very negative. Though we cannot do anything about it, but it disturbs us. It gives us a lot of what you call suppression and give us a lot of difficulties in order to come out of it. So if we go too much in our past and not knowing the directions of how to resolve it, then we are in trouble. But too much of the future also is no good. When you have too much of the future and you speculate too much, then you create a lot of unease and worries. Unease means you are not sure which direction you will be heading, what will be the outcome, what will be the result, and whether you are going to get a positive result or good result. Things have not happened yet, but you're already starting to determine and trying to speculate that the result ought to be like this, the result ought to give you that positivity. But it is not within your control because the future is yet to come. And it creates a lot of tension, anxiety and tension. And that's why a lot of us are in the state of stress. And when we have a lot of stress, we tend to be sick. We tend to be not able to overcome. And where there is no peace of mind, answers will not come, solution will not arise. And we will never be able to solve our problems. And so when you have too much speculation of the future, you will probably have a lot of worries and fear. And that's the reason why a lot of worries. Because when you have worries, it's because you do not know whether things will happen or not will happen, or your expectation will be met or not will be met. And you fear because if you don't meet it, then you are going to get into deeper trouble. And because of that, you get a lot of unease of mind. But the only way to resolve all this anxieties, dread, resentment, bitterness, stress, worry, fear, is push them one side and says, there's nothing much I can do, nothing much I can control. Why not I just focus on the present moment? Because the present moment is within my grasp, within my hands. I can do something about it. And I can develop something about it. I can actually decide which direction I want to move and then move along it. Whether it happens or not, whether it meets my expectation or not, it doesn't matter. As long as I do something about it. Now in life, there is this trinity of luck. We call it the 3 points of luck. It's called 天才, 地才, 人才. That means to say you have heaven luck, you have also earth luck, and you have also your man's luck or your human luck. Now we have these three types of luck that we will face or we will bring along. Now 天才 is carry on forward from life after life. And in the Buddha's teaching, we call it our karmas. You may have contributed a lot of good deeds, merits that you have accrued. And this has actually contributed a lot of good seeds that is waiting to ripen. So these are the luck that you brought forward. And you can also bring along some of your bad luck, the bad seeds that you have sown, the demerits that you have accrued, and they carry forward. As long as you don't exhaust and spend it and use it, it will always be within your mental stream. And it follows you like a shadow, life after life. And as you break forward to this present life, and if the condition is there, where the earth luck, the conditions that you are in, the people that you face, the environment that you have got yourself involved in, that will actually contribute the soil and the conditions that is conducive for the arising of that luck. The seed that you have will need the right soil, the right water, the right temperature. And because of that, when it occurs and the condition is right, that seed will germinate. So if the conditions are positive, the conditions are happy moments, it's usually your good seeds that will have a chance to germinate. But if you have a negative attitude, your unhappy attitude, this kind of condition is actually very suitable for our bad seeds of karmas. So your good and bad seeds will find its way out depending on the condition of your mind. And that condition depends on how you make full use of it to create that right condition. Because some of the seeds you may have sown in your past or in the near, what you call past, they are all waiting for the condition. As long as the condition is not there, they hibernate. They will just lie low and waiting for an opportunity. And as long as they wait for the opportunity and it doesn't come, it doesn't arise, that seed will always remain a seed, waiting and waiting and waiting. And sometimes, even when a person has attained enlightenment, that seed is still waiting and has no chance because there's no more entity for them to take their effect. So the moment you have this two kinds of luck, you still need to have what we call the men's luck or the tian cai. The ren cai. The ren cai means the human effort that you put in order to ensure that this seed will germinate. Now you may have your tian cai you brought along. The conditions is right, ready now. But unfortunately, you never do anything about it. And thus, you will not be able to enjoy the fruits if there are fruits. And thus, you will not be able to have that benefit of that luck. So, you must be able to kick your butts in order to go and take that opportunity, use that luck that you have accumulated, and eventually become successful as a result of it. So what matters most is how you're going to make use of that present moment, right? To do something about it. Just do it. And then eventually, you will then achieve the results. And this is a very important moment of our lives. So the moment you have that concentration on present moment, do you think about your past? Do you think about your future? So you have actually disassociated with your guilt, regret, resentment, sadness, bitterness. You have also disassociated with your unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, and fear. And thus, in its place, you will always have this lightness and your feeling of joy, you feel light, you feel free. You feel free from a lot of the binds of these negativities. And actually, this is how, when we do our meditation and focus on the present moment, our mind is not in the past, our mind is not in the future, our mind is in the present moment. And in its natural process, it will arise in our mind a sense of peace, a sense of calmness, and a sense of freedom. And that is very important. So therefore, in a lot of meditation, a lot of people say, well, I find it very difficult to focus. I find it very difficult to concentrate. You don't have to do anything to force yourself to concentrate. All you have to do is ask yourself a question. What am I doing now? As you sit here, cross-legged, you focus your mind on your breathing, You focus your mind on the movements of your hands. You focus your mind on the thoughts that arise. You focus your mind on the development of the thoughts that arise as a result. And when your mind is focused, you're actually doing what you ought to do in the present moment. Thus, you have actually disassociated with what was in the past and what was in the future. So when you are meditating, you only focus on what you are doing now. And actually, it's very easy to do because all you have to do is no need to work too hard. Just say, hey, what am I doing now? Oh, I'm sitting here. Oh, I'm breathing. I'm looking at a scenery. I'm actually focusing on a book. Then the mind is then zeroed in and focused and free from your past and free from your future. And that's called meditation. Sorry, today is a little bit difficult in the speech because of the cough for the past 2 weeks. Just recovered. So bear with me if you are, disturbed like this. But I'll try my best to speak slowly so that it doesn't get the irritation again. All right. Now, living in the now is actually the truest path to happiness and enlightenment. So the truest path and probably the only path to happiness and eventual enlightenment is trying to live in present moments. Because present moment is actually very neutral. Because if you don't believe it, you try and just focus on what you are doing now. And you have no thoughts about your past and no thoughts about your future. You'll find that within moments later, your mind tends to calm down. Your mind tends to be at peace and pacified. And that is the result we always want to, isn't it? That's the result always we expect and we want to achieve, but sometimes we do not know how to get it. So the answers is just ask ourselves a very simple question. What am I doing now? Okay, I'm doing this. I'm thinking of this. Or I'm saying and talking about this. Do not stay in the past. Do not dream on the future. Just concentrate on the present moment. So this is further emphasized and emphasized and emphasized. Because this is the path and the direction that will lead. And this has the power to help us to overcome a lot of our issues and a lot of our problems. Same thing, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. If you are depressed, you live in the past. If you are anxious, you live in the future. But if you are at peace, then you're actually living in the present. And this is also a very age-old saying by Lao Tzu, almost similar to what the Buddha, and is your universal message. Now, the past is already gone, right? And the future is not yet here. Because what you are today practically justify the past. Because what you are today is a result of your yesterday, isn't it? You arise because of what you have done in your past. And you become what you are today is also partly because of the efforts and the contribution that you have done in your past. You have been enjoying a lot of good life now. It is actually the contribution of all the good deeds that you have done in the past. So you can't do anything about it because it's already done. And therefore you are now just enjoying the fruits of it. And at this present moment, while enjoying the fruits, realize the fruits. And then make use of that fruits, that goodness, that richness, and that peacefulness in order to do something to prepare you for your future. So the future is not yet here. But the future will be what you do today. The future is what you are going to mold now. You are going to change now. If you want, like a student, if you want to score 10 distinction, you cannot just dream of it. You cannot say, oh, I want to expect to be, score my 10 distinction. But what are you doing about it now? You ought to study, you got to focus on your revision, you got to remember what you have learned, and then memorize them if you can, and then eventually understand it, and then finally realize it. Once the answers are deeply embedded, then the future is assured, and you will become what you have prepared today. So therefore, if you have prepared well, definitely the future is going to be well. If you have studied well and revised well, your exam is going to be flying colors. So actually, there's no worry about your future. You only just have to focus on what you do today. There's only one moment for you to live, and that is this present moment. So to live now is actually the correct attitude. Don't worry so much about your past, and don't focus too much about your future. Now, the secret of health for both the mind and the body is not to mourn in the past, for the past, and not to worry about the future, and not to anticipate trouble. Because it can be a lot of uncertainties, and uncertainties cannot be cured. It is always there. The only way is to try and do something to improve the certainty of it. And if we can do something about it now, then that is the most wise action that we can do. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh is a very famous teacher who taught a lot about the power of now, the power of living in the present moment. And he basically asked everyone to just look at what you are doing now, think of what you are doing now, and see what you can do now. And at the end of the day, as you walk, as you sleep, as you listen to music, what are you doing? You are listening to music. You are resting. You are talking. You are walking. And because of that, it develops mindfulness. And I think the concept of mindfulness comes from the understanding of present moment. Because when you are in the present moment, you are mindful. You are mindful of what you are doing, mindful of every action, every thought, every speech. So nothing is more precious than being in the present moment, fully alive, fully mindful and aware. So Thich Nhat Hanh, very famous teacher, you should actually get yourself some books, and you get a lot of insight about the way to live in the present moment. Now, when we are doing our breathing meditation, as we say, we breathe in, I calm down my body and mind. We breathe out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment is the only moment that I'm concerned. So breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. So when you are able to just focus on this, you're actually living in the present moment. You're actually dwelling in the present moment. And most of the time when we focus on this, breathing in and out, as we practice more and more, you will come to a point in time when you develop vipassana, when you begin to see the characteristics of phenomena. Characteristic of phenomena means you're able to see the rising and the falling, appearing and the disappearing. That when you breathe in and breathe out, and this is a process, and this process will then make you realize that when you breathe in, you must breathe out. When you breathe out, you must breathe in. Breathing in leading to a breathing out. Breathing out leading to a breathing in. For every breathing out, there will be a breathing in. For every breathing out, there will be a breathing out. And if you breathe in, you must breathe out. If you breathe out, you must breathe in. Therefore, no one breathes in without breathing out. And no one breathes out without breathing in. Because if you try to breathe in without breathing out, you are going to suffer. Because there is no permanency. You will change from breathing in to breathing out. So therefore, we begin to understand the characteristic of anicca, anatta, dukkha. Anicca is there is no permanent breathing in, and there's no permanent breathing out. It keeps on changing. Anatta means since there's no permanent breathing in or out, then don't grasp on it. Don't hold it. Don't say stay. Don't change. You're going to be disappointed. And when you're disappointed, that is where dukkha arises. So when you have anicca, impermanency, anatta, there's no permanent entity for you to grasp. And if you are grasping on a permanent entity, you're going to get dukkha. You're going to have what we call a disappointment or unsatisfactoriness. So you begin to realize that all phenomena that you experience, all natural process that you see and think about, subject to these three characteristics. And therefore, there's nothing for you to hold, nothing for you to grasp, nothing for you to be called, what you call unduly distant. And since there's nothing, then why become so disturbed about it? Everything is nothing, and nothing is actually everything. So when you have that concept in your mind, then you are no longer disturbed by anything. Because the anything is actually nothing. So nothing to worry about, nothing to be unhappy about. Life is available only in the present moment. Because only in the present moment you realize that you are living. You realize that, oh, I have a life. Oh, I have this, what you call a living processes that is within me. And I must be aware of it, and I must treasure it. I must make it very important and try to make full use of it. And once you realize it, then you have no time to spare. You always want to try to do something about it. And thus gives you the effort, gives you the zest and energy to drive yourself, to push yourself so that you can overcome. You can solve a lot of issues. And in its byproduct of being able to live in the present moment, there comes a lot of peace, there comes a lot of calmness, there comes a lot of understanding. So we have more possibilities available in each moment than we realize. Because when you realize that present moment, oh, the possibilities is plenty, because you can be successful. You can be somebody. You can achieve, you can attain, you can get what you expect. But you must live the present moment now. If you forgot to live the present moment now, and you are moving into the future without doing something about it now, then you are not able to achieve your possibilities. So Thich Nhat Hanh is actually focusing on this and pushing the people to just have one simple process, think about the living now, think about the living present moment, and then that will lead us to the direction that we all hope to be. So, as usual, in every book you see, he will always talk about breathing in, I calm my body, breathing out, I smile. Because this process actually helps you to calm down. Why? Because when you are focusing on the breathing in and the breathing out, you calm down your body. And when you calm down your body and your muscle relax, your facial muscle also relax. The smile will automatically arise and you will be smiling. You will not have any, what you call, tension or stress. So dwelling in the present moment is a very wonderful moment. So Thich Nhat Hanh has always emphasized on this. So present moment is a wonderful moment. This chart, if you place it in front of you every day, and just by looking at it, you will always remember to practice what is in the present moment. And you will be able to move forward, right? So happiness is when? Is it yesterday, happiness? Is it tomorrow? No. Happiness is what you realize now, what you feel now, and what you are experiencing now. So happiness is here. Happiness is now. So, but all these things need to do it one step at a time, right? Because you cannot muddle up everything at the present moment and say, oh, I want to do everything. You just have to say, what can I do now? Which one can I do now? What is the best step that I can take now? And once you are able to do that one step at a time, it makes all the difference. So therefore, space yourself, prioritize yourself, and says, today I'm going to do something about it now. And this is what I'm going to do. And when you have that good plan of what you're going to do today, it will lead to a better tomorrow. So with that, I always say, smile, don't worry, be happy, so that you are able to overcome a lot of your difficulties. So always remember, health is the most precious gain, and contentment is the greatest wealth. So with this, I end my short presentation today. And hopefully, if you have any questions, please forward them through all the channels available.
All right, thank you, Brother Datuk Charlie Chia. So I think I have a couple of questions here from the chat. Actually, we are open now for Q&A as well, but I'll go with this first. So basically, the first question is, how can we increase our focus in the present moment? Is there any other qualities that are required to achieve this? And also appreciate if you can briefly explain the difference between sati and samasati.
Okay, basically, a lot of us have difficulty starting to meditate because our concentration is not there. Our concentration is not developed because remember, when we practice cultivation of the mind, there's two avenues that we can do. One avenue is called right concentration, and the other avenue is called right mindfulness. So when we have these two avenues, which one comes first? A lot of times we say, okay, I'm just going to focus on one object. And eventually I'm going to develop that concentration based on that object. That means focusing all your mental energy into a focal point. Like you channel all the sun energy through the magnifying glass to a single point. And that point can be so powerful that it can burn a piece of paper. But many of us get distracted very easily. Our focus and our concentration is not powerful enough. So we find that you have a lot of difficulties trying to focus. And within 5 minutes, you run out. You actually give up and say it's game over. And thus, you may not be able to move forward. The other one, of course, is right mindfulness. Is that once you have that settlement of the mind, and once your mind is settled, now start to focus on the four bases. The four bases is actually your mindfulness. Sati, where you focus on the kaya nupassana, which is the bodily actions, right? And the other one, of course, is the vedana nupassana, which is on your feelings and the emotions that you are feeling. And then if you move forward, then you will actually focus on chitta nupassana, which is actually on the thoughts that arise. And then after that, you develop on the thoughts. You think about the thought, and it goes into a storyline. And thus it becomes Dhamma-nupassana. And actually, these are the four bases of mindfulness. And your mind actually revolves around these four bases. Now, meditation is like a monkey, Your mind is like a monkey. And a monkey is that you take a chair and you catch the monkey and you put the monkey on the chair. And you say, monkey, sit, don't move anywhere else. Just sit quietly on the chair. But how long can the monkey sit on the chair? The monkey sit for a chair and then become fidgety, and then eventually it starts to, jump up and run away. And when it runs away, your concentration will require you to actually pull the monkey back and says, no, you cannot run away, come back, sit. And the monkey will then sit again for a little while, and then eventually it runs away. So this is how you develop your concentration until the monkey is able to sit there for 5 minutes without running away, 10 minutes without running away, 20 minutes without running away, and so on. So the longer you are able to hold the monkey there, then you're focused and your concentration becomes stronger and stronger. And of course, a byproduct of concentration is a lot of blissfulness, a lot of calmness. It is a byproduct, right? So when you have another issue is that this monkey now has 4 chairs to sit, right? You place 4 chairs in a circle and the monkey cannot run away from that 4 chairs. At any one time, it must be in one of the chairs. Then you ask yourself, where is the monkey now? The monkey is mindful of the body, kaya nupassana. But once a while, it jumps out. It goes into feelings. It feels warm. It feels happy. It feels itchy. It feels pain. Then the monkey jumps into, or a thought arises. A thought that has a reason, a color, or an image. And then eventually it develops into a story. And now your mind has moved into Dhamma-nupassana. So at any one time, the monkey is in this 4 chair. So all you have to do is watch where your monkey is. Which chair is the monkey? Is the monkey in this chair or the monkey in that chair? And so on. So that develops what we call mindfulness. So concentration and mindfulness is what we can see the cultivation of the mind. So a lot of us finds it difficult to do that. Then we focus on what am I doing now? What am I doing now? Okay, I'm focused on on the feelings, or I'm focused on the body. I'm focused on the breathing. I'm focused on the thought that arises. So what am I doing now is a very easy question. And usually if it leads you to feelings or it leads you to thoughts of your body, then let it be. And you relax yourself. You mustn't force yourself. So it becomes easier for you to, focus slowly. And knowing our mind, it can be very stubborn. But as you do this over and over again, it will come a point in time when it pacified and conditioned itself. Then the mind will then be able to now sink into a certain concentration or a certain mindfulness. Now, sati is actually mindfulness, right? And samasati is right mindfulness. So that's why I explained to you that the right mindfulness is when you are able to focus your mind on the right object and be aware of what you are doing. And when you are able to be aware of what you are doing, then you are able then to relax your mind and focus on that particular object for that present moment, right? So any other questions?
Let me go through the chat first. Right. I don't think there are any questions right now. Anyways, we are actually open. So if you have any questions for Datuk Charlie, you can actually put it in here, or you can also type into Facebook as well if you want to. We'll be open until we'll be open for a few more minutes, and then we'll move on if there's no questions. All right, there's actually a comment. So this Dhamma session conducted by Datuk is so beneficial to me. I feel I can comprehend better in my meditation studies from this talk. So sadhu to you once again. And I don't think we have any questions now. So maybe we can move on to the sharing. But before that, I'll just do one last check first before if there's anyone who missed out on the train of asking the questions, or you just got lost in your train of thoughts. Yep, now is the time to type it in.
Today's message is actually short, but it is actually full of concentration, and it is actually the answers and the path that would eventually lead to a lot of peacefulness of the mind. And many of us are actually quite disturbed over this period of time, especially during the pandemic, right? We are actually quite worried about our future. Mm-hmm. And we have, a lot of people have asked and says that, since a lot of people are losing a lot of jobs and they are worried about their future, what can they do? And the question always I like to give is, what can you do now? Now, if you cannot pursue the profession that you want and the profession that you have been accustomed to, you can always adapt yourself. Mm. And this is actually a period of adaptation. Remember in the earlier financial crisis in Thailand, there was this tycoon who eventually lost everything. He lost all his wealth. He lost all his businesses, and he has to close shop. And eventually, what does he do? Does he just sit down and become remorseful and depressed and eventually to the extent of giving up on life. No, what he did was he actually picked up another new trade, and that is called selling sandwiches. So when he sells sandwiches, he actually mobilized himself, brought himself down to walk the streets and carrying boxes of sandwich and to the offices, and eventually sell them for maybe cheaper price than normal. But as long as he can make that little profit and keep himself occupied, he will be able to tide what you call the difficult times. And many a times, we all must understand the cycle of life. And all cycles of life is a very natural process. It goes up and it comes down. Anything that rise will eventually fall. Anything that fall, don't worry, it will rise again. In other words, for every difficult time, there will always come a sunshine, and the sun will always rise again. And therefore, are we able to right ourselves during this period? So be adaptable and be able to actually maneuver yourself. Do the things which, even if it is in a normal course of action, but as long as we can survive this period, we will be able to overcome. So concentrate on what you can do now. Don't worry so much about tomorrow. And the tomorrow may yet to come. It may turn out worse. It may turn out better. But if we can do something and make ourselves survive, then there is nothing to actually stop us from overcoming our difficulties. Okay?
Right. Brother Charlie, Datuk Charlie, actually, we have a question here in the chat. Let me actually bring it up. And also a couple of comments that are praising your ability to make the session very simple to understand. So kudos on that. Right, so we have a question here. It asks, how do you overcome the past and future that happens both at the same time in your mind, Basically, I think he means like, how do you overcome like worrying about both the past and also how it affects your future, and also what you do right now. I think that's what it means, right? You want to answer that?
One thing that we all know from learning about the law of nature. Now remember, the Buddha taught us for 45 years on the laws of nature and what natural laws are. And in the Dhamma, we call this what we call the niyamas, the 5 niyamas, pancha niyamas. And one of the pancha niyamas, or the natural law, is the law of the mind. And the law of mind basically talks about the workings of the mind and how the mind works. And one of the characteristics of our mind is that we can only do one thing at one time. Your mind can only have one object at one time. Your mind cannot have two objects at the same time, right? And if you are thinking of positive things, then your mind is not thinking of negative things. If you are thinking of happy thoughts, then your mind is not thinking of unhappy thoughts. And thus, when you have this kind of characteristics of the mind, that is actually our hope in life. Our hope in life is that if you do not want to have unhappy thoughts, what do? You think of happy thoughts. And when you think of positive and happy thoughts, most of the time, that unhappy and negative thoughts will not have a chance to arise in our minds. And especially, when we have too much of our past and too much of our future, our mind has nothing to think about in the present. So we mustn't think about your past and dwell on our future. And what was the advice? You just focus on what we can do today and what we can do in the present moment. And if our mind dwells on this, then our mind is not thinking about our past. Our mind is not thinking about our future. So if that's the case, then you are free from your past and you're free from your future. Although it is not erased, what we are trying to say is, but what you are and what you create in your mind determines what you will be. Because mind is chief. Mind is the creator. Mind is the creator of all good. Mind is the creator of all bad. So mind is chief. And this is the first verse in the Dhammapada. So understanding this, if we want good thoughts, if we want happy thoughts, if we want to have positive thoughts in our mind, then don't dwell on the negative. Don't dwell on the unhappy, and don't dwell on the bad thoughts. And if you don't dwell it, there is no room for it to arise. And so your mind will always in positivity all the time. And that is actually what we should be doing. In other words, a lot of times we say, don't worry, be happy. It's actually because we think of all the positive things that can happen. And that's why we don't worry. And because of that ability of our mind, that gives us hope in life. We don't have to dwell in our depression, unhappiness all the time. We can escape from it by just not thinking and not dwelling and not being mindful of it. And if not, then we will have lost all hope in life. But because of that natural characteristics and we understand it well, then we will be able to overcome. Right? So the understanding of the natural law is very important, because these are the laws that governs all the phenomena that is within the universe that we are living in. And every corner you go, this law will prevail. And since this is a natural law, let us live in harmony with it, live in accordance with it in order to be free from the repercussion and the consequences. So it's important to learn the Buddha's teaching because it teaches about the natural laws, and then live in accordance to it. Okay? That's my answer to the question.
Okay, awesome. We actually have a last question here, right? And we'll actually move on to sharing of merits later on. So this last question is from HL, who says, don't move forward to the future. Many things that we do are to lay a foundation for the future or to avoid problems arising. Is that moving to the future in this context?
Yeah, but particularly when you are planning what to do now, aren't you planning for your future? Right? You are going to plan to do something now. In other words, you want to say, okay, I'm going to expect to pass my exams well. But expectation is not good enough. So what am I doing now? I will now have to focus on my revision. I will now have to focus on my studies. I will now have to put more time and effort into looking into all my, books, and be able to understand what it says. So when you think like this, you are actually dwelling in the present moment. Although you are aware of your future, but you don't dwell in your future. You still have a plan, because you plan that you want to achieve certain things by doing something about this now, but not to dwell about the future and not doing anything about it now. So it's a difference there. A lot of us, we plan for our future, but we do not know what to do now. We do not have any plans to do anything now. So planning for the future, yes, there is this expectation, there is this ambition, there is this, looking forward. But at the same time, you must now fall back on what is in the present moment. And don't just keep on dwelling in the future. Or don't dwell in your past. Because you learn from your past. You learn, says, yes, I've done this mistake before. Okay? But I regret what I've done. Never mind. I will hope not to repeat it again. But in order not to repeat it again, what are you doing about it now? So you have to dwell in this mechanism in order to determine what you are supposed to do today. And what you do today is more important. So that is the reason why, yes, you can actually be aware, be mindful of your past and your future, but you are more concentrated on what the actions that you are going to do today. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, more like I was thinking to move on, but we have one last one here. Just came in just now from the nick of time. I don't know how it happened, but okay, here. So it says, when you see someone that does something that's not up to your expectations at that moment, how do you react? Maybe Datuk, you want to share a bit on that?
Well, there are a lot of instances when you expect certain things to happen, right? And eventually that thing didn't happen, and that someone didn't achieve it, or that someone didn't deliver it. Well, are you having any a possibility of changing it? Are you having any possibility of trying to correct it? If it is, then what can you do today? So this is a question we often want to ask. Yes, you realize that there is certain things that is supposed to be done, but it fails to happen. And if it fails to happen, are we going to lament about the future? Are we going to lament about the past? No. We are going to say, okay, it has already been done. It has already happened. And since it's already happened, well, let us see how to overcome it. Let us see how to reduce the impact of it. Let us see how to actually improve on the situation. So when you are thinking like this, you are actually thinking of a present moment. You're thinking of a present action that you can do. So you are always in a very positive mode. You're always in a proactive. Proactive means you are always trying to resolve it rather than succumb to it, rather than surrendering to it. Because surrendering to it doesn't solve the problem. Like we said in the very beginning, when you have a problem, you worry about it. Do you solve your problem by worrying about it? No, isn't it? So if you cannot solve by worrying about it, then why worry? Then if you don't worry, then do something about it. Do something to change it. Do something to reduce the impact of it. And then that will be a positive move.